5 years ago, the shell of my house appeared behind me, and for all these 5 years I've been reading comments saying that my foundation will crack, that the foam from the seams of the aerated concrete blocks will evaporate, that the aerated concrete itself will fall apart, that my roof will crack, the beams will break, and that the house will be annihilated altogether.
This house will stand for a couple more centuries. I guarantee it.
And somehow every year I keep waiting, can't wait, and every year I think there's nothing to talk about, but for some reason every year there is something. And today I'll tell you how another winter went for the house, what conclusions I drew from this wintering, what I would do differently if I built it again, and in general I'll tell you where I've been and what's going on. This winter went by for the house with almost no consequences, because everything that could be added to the house has already been added. Everything has already settled, everything is in place, everything has leveled out and dried, there are no cracks anywhere, nothing has tilted, shifted, cracked or moved out of place. Because about the pond, many people said I was an idiot for digging a pond on the property that my house would float away, but somehow it's still standing and not going anywhere. The most excitement I've had here was when my light fixture exploded, those Leroy Merlin fixtures. As they like to say on TV, there was a pop so loud that I literally jumped in my chair. An element on the circuit board actually exploded. I had to get a bit creative with DIY because there's no Leroy Merlin in my village. You have to travel quite a distance to get to one. My DIY solution worked at first, but then it stopped working. There are these connectors and an LED strip, but for some reason the contact keeps burning out at that spot. So I gave up and decided that I'll just go to that green store, which is now yellow and brown. I'll buy a new board, replace it, and now I know that next time I won't install these kinds of lights. The sink came off the cabinet and maybe I didn't degrease it properly, or maybe the sealant wasn't the right kind. Anyway, I reattached the sink using sealant and glue. No big deal since I always have the supplies. Everything's fine now. Also, every spring I have to adjust the door. I'm already fed up with this door. The adjustment is already maxed out. I've tightened it as much as I can because it stopped closing again. Traditionally, every spring I have to adjust this door. Whoever wrote in the comments that your plastic doors are fine, I don't know, go light a candle in thanks for that, because I'm suffering. Everyone I visited who has plastic entrance doors is suffering too. And there were a lot of comments about how I would do this entrance group on the terrace if I had to do it a third time. I visited some guys who are professional window installers in St. Petersburg. They're called Krepki Okna. I consulted with them about this issue, and first of all they showed me what kind of connector should have been used to join these parts. Because I just have some plastic thing installed here that's only 2 millimeters thick, but what was needed was a special reinforced thick connector which would have held the whole structure together. It was behaving like jelly. Literally, by replacing this one element, the opening would have turned out much better. Also, instead of using a 60 profile like I did, it was necessary to use the thickest one possible. I looked at the different profiles, held this one, and found there are actually 100 profiles, each with a sash. You need the thickest profile for a panoramic window like this, especially if there's a door, plus try to avoid using an insert at the top and either raise it with a step or something similar. I've already mentioned that I tested this solution with a step and overall I liked it. And it turns out to be much more reliable if there's no extra insert at the top of the opening. And also, regarding the door, I want to add, I don't know, maybe a fourth hinge here. Basically, I want to take the door off and readjust it because, well, that's it. By next spring it will stop closing again and that's it, there won't be anything left to adjust. Regarding the windows, I also mentioned in one of the previous videos that I want to replace the regular double glazed units in the bedroom with argon-filled ones. Because I have Velux windows installed on the attic floor and those double glazed units are filled with argon, I checked with a thermal imager to see what that's like. The thermal imager shows that the surface temperature of the wall is equal to the surface temperature of the glass. On regular glass, not filled with argon, the temperature differs by 5 degrees. It might seem like a minor detail, but when it comes to comfort, if you stand by a regular window in winter at -17, you can feel the cold coming from it if you don't have a heating device. That doesn't happen with Skylight windows. They feel just like a wall, plus it works the other way around in summer too, because when we have that spring sun it's low and it shines right through the windows. And by April or May it's still low, but it's already hot. And the rooms heat up a lot with regular glass if they're not covered by curtains. If you want to sleep in the bedroom until noon, you wake up drenched in sweat. Luckily, I don't sleep there until noon. I don't have time to sleep that much, but overall the desire to add that touch of comfort appeared when I saw the difference between regular glass and argon-filled glass. I asked the guys from Krepki Okna for an estimate on how much it would cost to replace my 2 regular double glazed windows with the same size units, also with 410-4 glazing, and filled with argon. The difference turned out to be 1,000 rubles. Damn, it just blew my mind. All my life I thought that windows with argon were something for the rich. And when I was ordering glazing for my house, it didn't even occur to me to ask for a quote. I asked for several options, meaning regular glass and white frames. I asked for the same with lamination, and I asked for painted ones. That's it, 3 quote options. I always thought double glazed windows with argon were only for the wealthy. They weren't for me. I wouldn't be able to afford them. There's 1,000 rubles difference between a regular unit and one filled with argon. And the level of comfort is beyond words. It's so much higher when your double glazed window has better insulation. And for anyone planning to install windows in their house, get rid of the stereotype that this is something only for the rich and ask for a quote. Because in my next house, all the windows will be filled with argon. I've read a lot of comments about how there's diffusion and that the argon will all evaporate. I've monitored with a thermal imager, and nearly a year after installing the Skylight windows, nothing has evaporated from them. Diffusion, if any, is present. It's a physical phenomenon, you can't get away from it, but it takes place over decades. If they made them more expensive, if double glazed windows cost twice as much, maybe it would even out. But 1,000 rubles, Carl. There were also a lot of questions about Skylight windows, whether they would leak or not. And the main thing, which I honestly didn't even think about, is how they behave in winter under the snow. Because since they are filled with argon, their thermal resistance is so high that the snow doesn't melt on them. So when a snowdrift falls on the roof and there are snow guards, the snow stays on the roof because of this. And I thought, well, it never even occurred to me that argon-filled windows would keep the heat so well that when snow falls it doesn't melt. I mean, when a snowflake falls on regular glass, it turns into water right away. But on argon-filled windows, it doesn't melt at all, it just won't, no way. But thanks to climate change and all that, the snow stayed on my windows for about 3 days, I think. Because there wasn't really a winter this year, you wouldn't even think so. So in some areas, like south of Voronezh, you really don't need to worry about it at all. If it's somewhere north of Leningrad Oblast, then the windows in the attic might be completely useless, even in winter, because they'll always be covered with snow here. And if they have argon, there's a solution for this situation. They add heating to the insulated glass unit. Now that's not something that costs 1,000 rubles anymore, it's noticeably more expensive. But there are cases where, for example, we just can't do without Skylight windows, and to keep snow from piling up on them, additional heating elements are used. I'm not going to do anything like that, because if the snow sits there for 3 days during the winter, so be it. Personally, I haven't felt any discomfort about it, because honestly, if the snow stayed there all winter, yeah, it would be pointless, but as it is, it's totally fine. You asked about the lighting. Overall, lighting in a room is a calculated parameter. You take the area of the room, and for each area there's a required window area. I did the calculations, and for me it's just about right, maybe a little below the standard. Personally, I like it when there's a lot of light in the house, and you can tell by the panoramic window here that I really enjoy having plenty of light. And I would have liked even more skylights, but I just couldn't afford more, so it turned out the way it did. Overall, I think it's enough. If I had a bit more money, I would have gone for the next size up, but overall this will do. And one day, in winter, when it was about -17, I was going up to the second floor for something, and I noticed that something was running down the windows. I got chills down my spine, my knees started shaking like, damn, were the commenters actually right? My attic windows were leaking. Then I was like, nah, that's nonsense. I went to get the thermal imager again, started checking the walls, found cold corners that had reached the dew point, where moisture appears and condenses from the air. And then I thought, damn, Ilya, you're such an idiot. You plastered and puttied the walls yourself. There's a ton of water in there. Each batch has more than 7 liters, and there were a lot of those batches. And there's a ton of water in the plaster on the walls that's drying out. And because of the good vapor barrier, there's really nowhere for it to go. It's all in the air, it can't escape, so it condenses, and that's why it runs down the windows. In the end, I waited for the plaster to dry, went to check again with the thermal imager, and everything was fine. Nothing leaking anywhere, everything's good, the windows are in perfect order. There's this thing that when everything is new, during construction something might go somewhere somehow, but once you have the proper humidity levels and everything has settled, then you won't have any problems. And what they write in the comments, don't read it, don't believe it, because usually it's written by people who don't have Skylight windows, who've never dealt with them themselves, just like people who write about Argon are the ones who don't have Argon-filled windows. Properly installed, good Skylight windows can't leak. I recorded a whole separate video about installation, and if you look at which layer attaches to what, how everything is done, where the overlaps are, it becomes clear right away. It simply can't leak, it's technically impossible. Plus, you need good windows. I have one Velux window installed and another Dekea window. Also, regarding the money, many people wrote about it, and a subscriber messaged me personally saying that he installed 3 Rooflight windows and it cost him 160,000 rubles. So overall, yes, it's a bit more expensive than regular windows, but I think it's quite affordable. Well, while I was walking back and forth with the thermal imager, I was looking at the house from the outside because new things appeared on the house. Plaster was added, planking was added, and insulated window slopes were added. On the outside, which is also very important because before they were inside, but it's important for them to be on the outside too. This makes the joint warmer. Unfortunately, I can't really do a before and after picture to show the difference because it wouldn't be relevant. It's impossible to get the same weather conditions week after week. You can't do it day by day either because you need some variation, and changes in temperature are also very important. But just based on my impressions and also what the thermal imager shows, just focusing on one specific spot won't really work. Even with great indoor weather, insulating only the window slope in a drafty house won't improve comfort much, but for me, everything seems fine. I also did some extra work and it seems to have gotten a bit better. I checked the spot. This is exactly where the frame meets the window slope inside. Down there the temperature was also close to the dew point, but the wallpaper isn't wet. Nothing has come off anywhere, so everything seems to be fine. I was hoping to see lower heating bills this winter, because thanks to the insulation and thanks to the fact that I changed the ventilation before there was too much of it, I set it up so that in its normal position the ventilation would be enough for 2 people. And if you need it for a crowd, you just press an extra button and that's it, everything works. But mainly there are 2 people living in the house, so that money doesn't just go up the chimney all the time. Plus, a ton of material for the flooring was brought into the house, a ton of timber, 1.5 tons of drywall. The second floor was insulated, well, to some extent. There are still some doors missing there. So all of this was supposed to slightly increase the level of comfort on the first floor. In terms of the fact that a lot of material was added, which affects thermal inertia, a few tons of material were brought in. Plus, the second floor isn't heated, which also raised a lot of questions. There are no heating devices there right now because, well, those rooms aren't being used as living spaces. I just use them as an attic. For now, it's still being finished. Later I plan to install 2 convectors, like 500 watts each. That's all that's needed there because there are no heating devices right now. In winter, it's around 20 to 25 degrees on the first floor and 19 on the second. The house keeps getting equipped with modern devices inside. One of them is a food waste disposer. I used to see one of these only on TV. And I was really curious to try it myself to understand why everyone has it in movies, but I've never seen one in real life. Is this thing actually useful or not? I got a Bort Alligator control model disposer delivered to my home. It's powerful enough to grind bones, yet quiet enough, and the induction motor should provide a long service life. You can install the disposer yourself. First, I removed the old siphon under the sink, and I was surprised that after only 2 years, the strainer's paint had already started peeling. I thoroughly wiped the holes in the sink and separated all the parts of the top section of the disposer. To do this, I had to remove the retaining ring with a screwdriver. Then, through the sealing gasket, I placed the new, nice-looking internal parts into the sink holes, put the retaining ring back on, and tightened all the bolts one by one with a hex key. This is for securing it from above. On the mating part of the disposer, there is another sealing rubber and a rotating ring for attaching it to the sink. Just align one part with the other and you can tighten the tension ring with a screwdriver. It might take a little more time maybe to connect the disposer directly to the drain without a flexible pipe. It's good that recently I started reading the instructions before installing anything, because in the T I had to knock out the plug with a screwdriver. This also had to be done at the top of the disposer so there would be a place to connect the dishwasher and the sink overflow. The kit includes the main elements for connection, but I bought a couple more elbows. Using an angle grinder, I shortened everything to the required length and assembled a direct connection. The most important thing is to make sure that the outlet from the disposer is higher than the drain to the sewer. I had only one outlet under the sink, so I attached a power strip to the module using professional trem tape, making sure that water couldn't get on it. And it turned out to be quite a neat and functional space, except that I also replaced the round bin with a rectangular one. To start the disposer, there's a wireless button with a piezo element. so you'll never have to change batteries. I stuck it in a convenient spot, and now we can move on to testing. The disposer really does work quietly enough that it might not even be noticeable over the sound of running water. Thanks to the 3-stage grinding system and forged impellers, it grinds very well. We turn on the water, press the button, and it's honestly a special kind of pleasure to be able to throw a lemon from your tea, tomato scraps, or peel onions or potatoes right into the sink. For the first few days I walked around the house thinking, what else could I grind? Even before, despite having a cat at home, I still had to throw some meat scraps with bones into the trash. And it doesn't take long before the smells of decomposition start to appear. Fruit flies from fruit peels also don't make the kitchen any more pleasant. And before I had to take out the trash much more often, and if I forgot it would not only start to stink but also leak. Since you live outside the city, you have to carry everything in your car, which can even leak. So I tested it myself, and the disposer really can make life not only more comfortable but even save our precious time. No more clogs and no need to clean the siphon. For safety, there's a special rubber insert in the sink and a pusher. In case something gets stuck, the disposer has an automatic reverse, and as for the reliability of the device, you can extend the warranty for free up to 5 years on the Bort website. If you have a housewife and you don't know what to give her as a gift, give her a disposer like this. I'll put a link to Bort Alligator Control in the description, and using my promo code gets you a bigger discount. And outside the house, every spring I traditionally have this kind of hustle when I need to pick up some sticks and generally tidy up the yard. Every spring I need to clean the gutter on one side of the house because there are trees growing about 5 meters away, and every fall a bunch of leaves falls on them and clogs the gutter. I need to clean it. On the other side of the house, the trees are about 20 meters away and almost nothing falls into the gutter. Every spring I still climb up and check, but there's really nothing to clean there. I talked about treating the area for mosquitoes by spraying cypermethrin and was really surprised that this stuff actually helps a lot. Well, it's like, I don't know, some kind of magic, because if you go to the neighboring plot you get bitten, you're always sitting there all bitten up, but when you come here maybe 2 mosquitoes fly by and that's it. That's pretty cool. I thought I wouldn't treat the area just to see what happens, but basically after working on the plot for 15 minutes I really wanted to spray it because I was getting eaten alive. I was like, damn, it was so much better with the treatment. The thing is, every spring I still have to buy a liter of cypermethrin, not so much to treat the whole plot, but mainly to get rid of ants, because ants are real pests. Until I finished the base of the house dam, they just liked the house too and decided to move in with me without paying rent. So the normal strategy is to buy a liter at the beginning of the season, do a couple of treatments, like around the May holidays and a bit in June. Those are the 2 main months when mosquitoes really bite us here, because after that it gets warmer and there aren't that many of them, plus to keep ants away from the house. And for another 5 years I also lived with moles nearby. They were digging somewhere in a corner. They didn't bother me and I didn't bother them, but last year for some reason they got really bold and dug up my whole yard. And moles are real jerks too, damn. Of course, they're not as bad as ants, but they really messed up my whole lawn too, just dug up half the yard here. In the end, thanks to a subscriber who told me that fumigation tablets exist. I ordered these fumigation tablets. They cost literally about 300 rubles. You need to carefully remove the top layer with a shovel where the mole dug, and you'll get a hole into the burrow where they live. Sometimes it doesn't work out, so I just dug it out with my fingers, threw one tablet in there just so it would roll about 20 centimeters into the burrow, poured a little water over it and stomped it down well. This way all their trenches and tunnels that they've dug get filled with gas, and the moles basically go to their final rest so they don't ruin my lawn here. Moles can actually be useful to some extent when there aren't too many of them, because they eat all sorts of pests that damage other things. Everything in our world happens for a reason. This is a chain, an ecosystem. If you remove one link, the whole system can collapse and a problem might pop up somewhere else. And I wouldn't bother them if they were just digging somewhere in the corner, but they've really dug up the whole area, and I thought, well, that's how it is. Rather, no, reduce their numbers. Population. In general, I'm getting a bit into this whole gardening topic, and my wife and I are already coming to the idea that maybe we could have some garden beds, maybe even a greenhouse, and grow some greens, maybe even some cherries or something. With the sun coming out, I just want to spend more time doing things like tinkering with the car. I also needed to swap out some grills to make it look nicer, the way I like it, for better ventilation. I want to spend more and more time outside. Maybe it's something that comes with age, but I feel like I've become sun dependent. As soon as the sun comes out, I immediately want to live, go somewhere, be active, do something. I was off screen for a while simply because I just wanted to rest. I haven't had a vacation for a year, not just that I didn't go anywhere, but I haven't had a vacation at all. Basically, I don't work 40 hours a week. If I worked 60 hours a week, that was an easy week for me. Damn, since I became a blogger. I've never worked this much except when I was an entrepreneur. Overall, these last 5 years have come at a great cost, both to my physical health and my mental health, and in general. I spent all these 5 years living in a constant state of stress, so I needed a break. That's why my wife and I went on a trip to the Philippines. It was a very interesting adventure, and I'll try to make a video about it on my live channel. After the Philippines, I got sick, spent a week lying on the couch with a runny nose, and then we left again. With my friends, we went beyond the Arctic Circle to snowboard. I want to start a tradition of going somewhere at least once a year just with the guys. It's like that good Russian movie, What Men Talk About. Going on trips like that or something similar is really good for your mental health. It also took some time for the channel to get its own merch. That's a whole separate story too. I talked on Boosty about how we used to hustle. We made custom swimsuits, sold all of that back when I was doing my entrepreneurial stuff, and about the merch too. Maybe there will be a story on Boosty about how it was all created. Turns out just sewing clothes is not easy at all. For now, there's only a test batch. The members of my Telegram channel are kept up to date. They get all the news faster, so there's information there too. Health also requires a lot of attention, and I need to restore all of that. After the construction, a lot of people meet me on the street. They ask, "Oh, Olya, somehow I fell apart after I built my house." When I say, "Well, I fell apart too, just like you." The funny thing is that I had to pull myself together and also take care of my teeth. I hadn't done it in a long time, but I finally did everything, and in the end it worked out. It's time to update all of this because my wife has her own story, a whole saga that's been going on for about half a year now. My wife has had 2 surgeries, and now there's going to be a long rehabilitation period. All of this requires a lot of money. I talked about this on my live channel too. I won't burden you here with all this sad stuff. And the most common question is, did I sell the house? No, as you can see, I'm still here, so I haven't sold the house yet. There's a link to the listing in my Telegram channel, so if you're interested, check it out. I've seen all those comments like, "Ilya, think about it," on those sites. Bogina really won. I'm surprised at how people I don't know have these opinions. For some reason I try not to do that in life, but apparently other people think differently. I even recorded a whole separate video about why you need to do it this way and no other way. Just because the house is being sold doesn't mean videos will stop coming out on the channel. I won't leave you without content since most of you really liked all of this. At the very least, you all enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it too, so I'll keep going. Doll 2 is starting. We've already found a place where we'd like to settle down for good. Exactly, we're now learning about kindergarten, schools, where and how to enroll, all right on site. Right now our friends are starting to have kids. Some are already going to kindergarten, some are about to start school. Well, we practiced a bit, watched how it all works and made a note for ourselves. That's it. We view things by their potential and want everything to go smoothly with having kids so we can enjoy the process. They do it in a way that feels burdensome, but they found a place. Now I'm focused on a plot in a specific location. I'm not telling anyone yet because I want to buy it first. If I tell people before, I probably won't buy anything. My thoughts are already completely in the new house, in the new construction. I have a lot of plans and that's it. These comments like, "Ilya, think it over." Right now I'm not telling anything, but I'm getting things done. I do things first, then I talk about them. I'll do it, then it will happen, and when I show it, I'll tell you about it. So please be patient, it will be very interesting later. With selling the house, it's the same thing. It might sell tomorrow or it might take 3 years. Who the heck knows when it will all happen. Because overall the real estate market isn't really moving anywhere, and in our village there basically isn't a real estate market at all, so it's all pretty unclear. So basically I'm living in the house and will keep working on finishing it while also dealing with some issues related to further construction, so I can approach it as prepared as possible. It feels like, in my opinion, the house is starting to look pretty much finished. I mean, everything is ready on the outside and inside. Well, it's just the final finishing left. I just need to finish the ceiling and floor in the attic. Because Pasha, the load-bearing and enclosing structures are already done and most materials are in place. That's basically it. There are tons of materials there, all those insulations and isolators, films and so on. Everything is already there, everything works the way it's supposed to, everything is already fine-tuned. All those teething problems with the house are already gone. And it's not just life, it's pure pleasure now. So, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.